Mary wakes up early to get ready for her first day at school. Her uncle Frank prepares breakfast for her. He has been raising her since Mary's mother passed away when she was young. However, Mary is upset and doesn't want to go to school because she feels she doesn't need it. Her uncle insists that she must go to school, so Mary reluctantly takes the bus. In her first class, her math teacher Bonnie is teaching the kids basic addition. Mary becomes bored because she finds the equations too simple. Bonnie becomes annoyed by Mary's behavior and asks Mary some difficult questions. Surprisingly, Mary answers them correctly despite her young age. Bonnie then challenges Mary to multiply a large number in math. Mary is late in answering, leading Bonnie to believe she doesn't know it. But Mary surprises Bonnie by answering the math question correctly, leaving Bonnie speechless. As Bonnie calculates the numbers, she realizes Mary's answer was right. Meanwhile, the headmistress welcomes the new students, but Mary speaks to her rudely, asking to be picked up by Frank. Eventually, Frank arrives to take Mary home. When Bonnie sees Frank, she approaches him to talk. Frank apologizes for Mary's behavior, attributing it to nerves on her first day. Bonnie acknowledges Mary's talent for answering difficult questions and expresses her belief in Mary's potential. Frank explains to Bonnie that Mary learned how to solve math problems without a calculator, using techniques from the past. He shares that he learned this skill when he was 8 years old. They then leave for home together. Frank works as a boat machinist at the port, and talks to Mary about breaking her promise not to show off her intelligence. They agree to keep it low-key to help Mary integrate better. Mary apologizes, and they later spend time together at the beach. Despite initial challenges, Mary continues attending school and trying to fit in with the other kids. One day, she has an exam, and when Bonnie hands out the papers, Mary quickly finishes. Bonnie isn't surprised by Mary's speed. Afterwards, Bonnie administers an exam typically given to university students, aiming to assess Mary's abilities. To her surprise, Mary completes the exam effortlessly. Following class, Bonnie investigates Mary's background and discovers that her mother, Diane, was a renowned mathematician known for solving complex equations. Tragically, Diane committed suicide under mysterious circumstances, leaving Mary in Frank's care. Bonnie visits Frank at the bar and shows him Mary's exam, wanting to understand her abilities. Frank shares a painful memory, recalling a date interrupted by Mary's mother, who wanted to speak with him. Despite promising to talk later, he returned to find Mary alone and her mother having taken her own life. He explains that Mary's father left them, which greatly impacted her behavior. Bonnie acknowledges Mary's intelligence, but Frank insists on keeping it hidden to ensure Mary is treated like any other student. The next day, on the bus, a bully ruins another child's project. Angered, Mary retaliates by hitting the bully with a book, causing him to bleed. Frank meets with the principal, who offers Mary a scholarship to the Oaks Academy for gifted children. Despite this opportunity, Frank declines, fearing the school's impact on Mary. The next day, Mary apologizes to her classmates and vows not to resort to violence again. She then leads the class in applauding the student whose project was damaged. Later, Frank introduces Mary to her grandma Evelyn, who gifts her an expensive laptop. He confronts Evelyn about her sudden appearance after 7 years. Evelyn avoids the question, stating that their current living situation isn't suitable. After a while she leaves. Frank finds Mary absorbed in a math book on her new laptop and is troubled by this. He meets Evelyn and reveals that Diane, his sister and Mary's mother, wanted Mary living a normal life away from mathematicians. Tensions rise as Evelyn threatens legal action for custody. Evelyn eventually files for custody, claiming Mary's living conditions with Frank are inadequate. The legal proceedings adjourn with a promise to reconvene after a home inspection. Frank asks their neighbor, Roberta, to take care of Mary for the night, as she cares deeply for her. Meanwhile, Frank meets Bonnie at the bar, where they discuss Mary's custody case. Bonnie senses Frank's fear of losing Mary. The next day, Mary leaves Roberta's house and finds Bonnie at home. Despite her embarrassment, Bonnie quickly leaves. Frank, feeling overwhelmed, reprimands Mary for leaving without permission, causing her to cry and retreat to her room. After a while, Frank apologizes for his outburst. Shortly after, Frank receives a letter from the court, mandating that Mary spend 2 days with her grandma, Evelyn. Meanwhile, Bonnie expresses her fear of repercussions at school for her actions to Frank. The next day, Evelyn takes Mary to the university. They see a wall with photos of people who solved tough math problems. One problem is named after Mary's mom, Diane. Mary thinks she might be on that wall one day. Evelyn introduces Mary to a math teacher who gives her a hard problem. Mary impresses everyone by solving it perfectly. After the visit, Mary goes back home to Frank. She loves Evelyn but doesn't want to live with her because she's strict. Frank promises to support Mary always. At the custody hearing, Mary's absent father is represented by Evelyn. During the custody hearing, Frank's lawyer proves that he was never Mary's legal guardian. He had never even seen her before. The judgment is in Frank's favor. Frank informs Mary about seeing her father in court, but she is devastated that he didn't bother to see her. In an effort to lift Mary's spirits, Frank takes her and Roberta to the hospital. They wait for hours, unsure of what Frank has in store. Eventually, they witness the joyous celebration of a family welcoming a newborn baby. Frank explains that this is exactly what happened the day Mary was born. They spend the night witnessing other families' celebrations, and Mary joins in, her innocence shining through. After several court sessions, Frank's lawyer suggests placing Mary in a care home for adoption to satisfy both parties. Nervous, Frank agrees to consider it. He's worried Evelyn's wealth might sway the trial. The next day, Frank meets a good family willing to adopt Mary. Reluctantly, he agrees, ending the trial without a clear winner. Frank takes Mary to her new home, where she tearfully asks him not to leave her alone. He promises to visit her. Mary tearfully reminds Frank of his promise, feeling betrayed. Frank tries to comfort her, but she pushes him away, screaming that he's leaving her alone. The next day, Bonnie discovers an ad for Mary's cat up for adoption and alerts Frank. He rushes to the animal shelter, where he learns that the cat was sent by someone allergic to cats, likely Evelyn, who took Mary in. Frank and Roberta immediately go to the foster house. Frank pleads with Mary to come back with him, but she refuses and runs off. Before leaving, Frank leaves a notebook for Evelyn, including the solution for the Navier-Stokes equation by Diane. Frank apologizes to Mary for leaving her alone and promises it won't happen again. Despite her anger, Mary is relieved to learn that her cat is safe with Frank. Evelyn accuses Frank of lying and doubts Diane's ability to solve the equation. Frank reveals Diane's last wish to withhold the notebook until after Evelyn's death, shocking her. He leaves Evelyn with the notebook and takes Mary home. After reading Diane's notes, Evelyn realizes the pain she caused her daughter before her suicide. Several months later, Mary becomes a university student despite her young age. After her lectures, Frank picks her up, and they head to the kids' playground. There, Mary enjoys playing with her friends, just like any other child her age.